Yeah. Please, yeah.
Okay, our next speaker, if everybody's ready from the survey, our next speaker is Richard French. Dr. French leads Global Animal Health Partners, LLC, dedicated to the integration of health systems. Dr. French acquired his DVM, MS, and PhD from the University of Illinois. He is a veterinary pathologist with over 35 years experience and has recently served as Vice President of Animal Health for CP Group in China and Head of Operations for the Animal Health Center for Boehringer Ingelheim in Shanghai, China, and he now provides consulting services in Asia. Welcome, Dr. French.
Thank you. Everybody hear me okay? Okay. So what I'm going to talk about is kind of implementation of some of the tests that Sol spoke about. Point of care, it's going to be one point of care test, and this was actually in Thailand. So just to give you some insight. So just to show of hands, who's had a diagnosis of PRRS in the past year? Or if you don't want to admit it, that's okay. So the reason I bring this up, so diagnosis of tell you that, one, biosecurity didn't work on your farm, okay? That's my point. Who's had a diagnosis of SIV? Okay, if you have, biosecurity didn't work on your farm. Who had a diagnosis of PED, and you could just go through the list, okay, circovirus or ASF. Hopefully no one says African swine fever in the room, okay, if you're from the Western Hemisphere. So kind of a preamble to this is, and it's some of the questions were already raised, ASF circulating in the world includes highly virulent and now attenuated strains. So the African swine fever that we were educated in a decade ago has completely changed. And the majority of ASF that's in Asia now are attenuated strains, okay? So it's changed. And the pathology has changed with it. We're used to ASF that's per acute. You get pigs that are sick overnight, and you get hemorrhage within another 24 hours, and pigs die. That's not the case anymore. There are chronic attenuated forms of African swine fever. So diagnosing it becomes a bigger challenge. And because you get chronic forms, other things can be mitigating. So you have other diseases in the premise. You have other bacterial diseases, other viral diseases. And so African swine fever could now be in the background, okay? And the morbidity rate in early outbreaks will be low. It's not a foot and mouth disease outbreak that you know in 12 hours, 24 hours, it's hitting 100% of your animals. African swine fever comes in slow. It's insidious in its invasion, okay? And detection can be challenging in these chronic forms of disease, okay? And my recommendation when I was in Asia is all moribund dead animals on farms and at a premise or plants be tested regardless of presumptive diagnosis. Because you're going to miss this disease now, okay? So kind of a preamble to this. There are 75 million hog and pig farms in the U.S. As of mid-2025, okay? This is data out of Kansas State. An estimated 120 million pigs are transported each year in the U.S. in various shipments, okay? That's around 750,000 loads per year. And if you look at a typical work day, but basically what this comes down to is the last line here. So under those assumptions, how many pigs, blah, 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 at any moment, there might be 400,000 pigs on trucks traveling in the U.S. That's in any moment, in an 8-hour time period, in one day. 4,000 pigs on trucks moving in the United States. So if you have an outbreak of a disease and you don't detect it early, you've missed the boat, okay? If you wait a day, 2 days, 3 days to get a diagnosis, by then you've had, 1,200, a million pigs move around the United States. So that disease is already spread. Thus, the earlier the detection, the better the case in terms of eliminating or controlling a disease. And what's the first thing that's going to happen if ASF is detected in the U.S.? What's the first thing APHIS USDA is going to do? Stop all movement of pigs for 72 hours. That's in the preparedness plan. Has everyone read that? Okay? Preparedness plan, 72 hours stop. Okay? But if you don't detect it in that first, week or whatever it is, then you've missed the boat because millions of pigs have already traveled. Okay? And just as a reminder, this is where African swine fever is. Also here, okay? We know about it in the Dominican Republic. And I actually can't believe it's not in the Western Hemisphere yet other than the Dominican. I can't believe it. The way PED moves, SIV, every other disease. How is it not here? It just hasn't hit a pig farm. I'm sure it's hit our border, okay, in something. So how will it get here? We all know this. Here you have this is at the airport. A lot of people traveling throughout the world. If you want to go to Asia and see what travels here, but it's movement of not pigs that we're worried about. It's people and products, okay? And we don't think about all the products that move, okay? So actually coming out of this is kind of interesting that ASF significantly disrupts markets and movement, but people find opportunities within that. So risk changes. And this is a gentleman that tapped into China exports for moving swine out of China, okay? And he didn't establish this until 2021, okay? So do you think we're safe? That's the whole point, okay? And one of the things that Russia and China have done and other Southeast Asia countries to make up for the loss of swine with African swine fever is to build bigger. So they're producing more pigs now with what's hopefully higher biosecurity, okay? So building bigger doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna be safer, okay? And one of the things we have to know that China is a big exporter, okay? Supplies 70% of pet food and animal feed and feed ingredients are imported into the US, all come out of China, okay? So this is one of the sources that we have to think about. So it's not just point of care testing on farms, but you have to think about potentially point of care testing in ports of entry, feed mills, things of that sort, anything that comes in that can come in contact with food animals, okay? And just, this is a window of ships at sea or at ports at any one time. Okay, this is all available. Just go to marinetraffic.com and you can see where any ship is in the world transporting cargo. Okay, this is one moment in time. Okay, and that virus could be anywhere in any of these shipping containers. Okay, those are virus particles if you can't see them. Okay. And then this is the same, flight trade, flighttrader24.com. You can see where any commercial plane is in the world at any one moment. And this not only includes passenger airlines, but also freight airlines. A lot of stuff is traveling by freight now. So again, the same thing. Where's that virus, okay? So these are all, again, places where point of care can come into play, not only on the farm, but ports of entry, okay? So when this study funding became available, one of the things we had to do is find a country that's endemic with African swine fever so we can conduct a study of a field implementation of a point of care. So I'd already been working in Thailand, so Thailand is one of the places that we went to. It's interesting that Thailand had reported unusual reports of PRRS outbreak on the border with Laos in July of 2019. This was actually determined to be their first African swine fever outbreak. But the first official reported outbreak was in 2021 through basically World Organization for Animal Health, or OIE, okay? Because of reporting mechanisms. So labs were able to detect the disease, but labs don't always report to the government, depending on the country that you're in. So you always have to be aware of these things. So we're in Thailand. This is a colleague of mine with ASF outbreak. This is actually in China. This is in Shenyang, where we were asked to, a colleague of mine from the US, we're asked to go into a farm that just broke with African swine fever and stop it from moving in the farm. This is a farm of 2,500 head sow, and we couldn't stop it. Once it was in the farm, we couldn't stop it no matter what biosecurity we put in, external to the farm, but also internal to the farm, okay? How people were moving, things of that sort. Okay, you don't want to be doing this as your diagnostic means on the farm, okay? If you're at this stage, too late, okay? So what one advantage do we have to find Waldo? Waldo being African swine fever. This guy, okay? Can anyone see him in the figure? Hey, look, yeah, can't find him, okay? Early detection and rapid response, okay? Second to biosecurity is detecting the disease as early as possible. And that's really what point of care testing is about, early detection, okay? This is actually another interesting situation. So this is at Leman, China. Leman conference in China. I don't remember the year. This is probably 2019, maybe 2020. And a group funded by the university and the government was looking for swine pathogens at the conference. In other words, who was coming into the conference with stuff on their shoes or in their backpack or whatever. And what they actually found was the environmental samples collected were at the swine conference, tested for swine pathogens, and government-sponsored study. They found 7 of 32 samples had PRRS, 4 of 32 had pseudorabies, circovirus 4 of 32, and none of them had African swine fever. And what was interesting, I was sitting in the room at the time, and the entire audience, all Chinese, which usually don't have a big sense of humor, they all laughed because they knew African swine fever was in that conference room. And that's one of the things you have to think about, is how the disease moves and how you can stop it and where you can implement testing. Just another example. So everyone was trying to get prepared. So this is Prepared Conference. Notice the date, December 2018, FAO starts a Prepared Conference. And actually, FAO is the one that promoted and suggested using point-of-care testing in Asia to try and control this disease. It was FAO that really implemented that, okay? But they basically asked all these folks, you know, are you identified? Do you have early detection? And when you ask, and this is multiple countries, so you have China, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, South Korea, Japan. They're all attending this conference. Are you prepared? And a lot of green is yes, okay? Yep, we're fully prepared. We have early detection. We have preparedness, we have prevention, and most of these countries were actually in the red, but some were in the green. They thought they were fully prepared, but as you're fully aware, nobody was prepared, okay? It just plowed right through Asia. Asia, including Russia, okay? And the same in parts of Europe. So I think this is an important slide, is when are we at highest risk? So you might miss African swine fever because the disease has changed. We have these kind of attenuated strains. So what's our high risk period? The high risk period, and this is how to look at it. If you have introduction of foot and mouth disease on a farm, within 12 to 24 hours, you know you have foot and mouth disease, almost without a diagnostic test. Classic swine fever, a little bit longer, but you'll pick up classic swine fever probably within 72 hours of being on a farm. African swine fever, the time from its introduction to when it's first diagnosed, there's a lag period. And that lag period is that high risk period. That's when the disease is spreading, because 400,000 pigs are on a truck at any one time in the United States. Okay? They're moving. So your high risk period is from introduction to the first detection. So can you narrow that window, that high risk period? That's point of care testing. That's the way one of the ways we're thinking of it. And this is just another way to look at it. Okay? Foot and mouth disease, you know you got it. Classic swine fever, it takes you a while because of the way the pattern of the disease and how it moves through the farm. But African swine fever is going to smolder in a corner, and an attenuated strain you won't pick up right away. But if you had point of care testing, so you might be thinking, well, I don't want to collect samples and send them to Minnesota. You don't want to send them to Minnesota because, you think you got this. You just put that sow off in a pen, off in the corner, see what kind of happens. But if you had point of care tests right on the farm, then you might be inclined to test that animal right away. And that's how you're going to catch this early. Okay? So be comprehensive. Okay? You can't see the person here, but that's a person dousing them. They're in a 55-gallon drum of Virkon. Okay? That's part of their biosecurity protocol on the farm. Okay? Believe me, everyone's tried everything to stop this, and it hasn't stopped. That's my point. Okay? So second to biosecurity is early detection, point of care testing. There's a video. Did it work? You have to do this. Okay, you go onto a farm, you go through tunnels and get sprayed with whatever, and no one will tell you what it is, but you come out spotless. Okay? I've done it multiple times, and I don't know if it's Parkinson's or but so one of the things we did a testing platform in Thailand. What we used is what's called Biomeme. Biomeme is produced by a company in the United States. The device is, it's compact. This is something this size. Okay? Fairly rugged. You can decontaminate it. It's simple, real-time, cloud-based, versatile, used by the DoD for biological warfare. So it's a pretty rugged product if the DoD picks it up and they're using it in the field. And so this is the device. It's linked to your phone, and then you have a testing platform. Comes in a nice rugged carrying case in case you got it in a Humvee, if you're using Humvees on your farm. But basically, it's a very rugged device, and you can completely decontaminate it. Okay? And it collects and contains a tremendous amount of data. Okay? So the date, the time, results, of course, location, so GPS, your latitude, longitude, serial number of the test, your unit name, firmware versions, name of the test that you're using, so it's ASF or SIV or PERS or whatever it is, whatever test you're applying. Real time, initial denaturing cycle denaturing, annealing duration, and extension. So tremendous amount of information collected by the device. And you know where the device is. This is one of the unique features of this instrument. And it's all on your phone, okay? And so we had 360 tests to perform. Some tests were, of course, used in training. And all tests were run and reported and recorded in this cloud-based system, which is still under control of BioMean, okay? And all tests are recorded. So data reporting and recording. So this is just going in on the BioMean site. This is one of the test kits. And this is one of the features that's good about this. So someone was asking, how do we get our regulators to approve a point-of-care test? USDA wants, this is a reportable disease. USDA wants absolute control of information because of its impact on markets, on swine production, and not just markets in swine production, but cattle, so beef, poultry, because once you have an outbreak of one disease, countries can come in and say, well, we don't want any of your products because you don't have good biosecurity, that kind of thing. So USDA wants absolute control. If you're doing lateral flow tests on a farm for African swine fever, how is the USDA going to know who's doing what? They aren't going to know. So that's one thing that might not pass USDA's muster. But this point-of-care test, that's the kit right there. So for the device to work, you have to take the phone and scan the UPC code on the kit. It tells the device what you're going to run, and it sets up the parameters in the device. And then all that information is linked to whoever you tell it to go to. So you could tell this device that it sends all the information to you, your boss, and NBAF or AIMS, whoever. And it can do that from anywhere in the world. So for example, USDA APHIS International Services could set this up not on import borders, but on export sites. And they get all the data right here in AIMS or at NBAF in Kansas, okay? So that would be a unique feature, okay? You have full control over the data. That's very, very important, okay? So the IndiField platform is cloud-based with a database app available from BioMean. So right now, BioMean controls that. Of course, USDA might say, well, we'll have to control that if your USDA regulators wanted to take it on. The BioMean unit's called the Franklin. If you want to look up BioMean Franklin, it's the same thing as Indical IndiField. Indical's the veterinary version, the IndiField. Data is displayed on the smartphone, can be directed to any global location via cloud access and password controlled. Data in the BioMean app is comprehensive, but the app currently has limited functionality, but that's always something you can work around. And the app right now, the BioMean app, is owned by BioMean, just so you know these things. And IndiField does not require internet, cloud, or web-based access to work. But once you move that phone into internet access, Wi-Fi access, all that data goes, okay? So you might be restricted in, say, a really rural area because that data is not uploaded quickly. But as soon as you link that phone, that data is out there. Okay? So we did a training, translated everything into Thai, and a couple different farms. Training on the IndiField mag system was with iScience was the distributor. One of them you could see were actually in the home office of someone's farm with his colleagues standing by and his son in the back that's going to medical school. You meet the whole family when you do this in Thailand. And then another premise where we're actually in an office space and we're training everyone from, say, laboratory technician skills to DVMs on how to do this test. We put this test in the hands of the people on the farms. And then we let them run with it. We left, okay? And we could see everything they're doing sitting in Bangkok, okay? And we'd see it in real time. And this is just to give you an example. This is one of the farms. So say just calling it Farm A, small holding farm, sow to finish, non-corporate farm, 300 sows. They had 800 before they were hit with African swine fever. General health status was good. Farm shows fair biosecurity. They use lye and disinfectants, and numerous employees, most of the employees are from off-site, so they're always coming to work. Farm discovered to have ASF live vaccine part halfway through the study, so we were getting some odd results, and it turns out they were actually using a vaccine without telling us. And that kind of fubbed with the data, but we picked it up because it's a live vaccine. So the device worked, okay? And they did have prior ASF on the farm, and no reported current cases of ASF on the farm. So the only detection we had on the farm was from a vaccine, okay, during the study period. And they're currently using a point of care, was a lateral flow test from BioNote. That's what they were using prior to this. So just a small farm here. This is the entranceway looking into the farm. And so these aren't laboratories, okay? You're not putting the device in a laboratory. You're putting the device on a desk in an office space or something like that, which you can do with this device and do all your testing, okay? And the testing is pretty straightforward. The second farm, sorry, going off the slide here, Farm B, a little bit different. There's their house right there. So this is the owner's property. Again, 500 sow, 40% loss with African swine fever. General health status was good. Farm shows good biosecurity using lye and other things. I'm going to read this way so I don't get a neck cramp. Really clean farm. When you walk into this place, you didn't even smell pigs. Okay? Breeding with AI was performed by the owner, and then used a local feed mill. And they had ASF on the farm 2 times, and they were able to bring it under control. First outbreak was in the finisher farm. Second outbreak was in the sow farm. And talking to the owner, they assumed it came from the feed truck or the truck driver. But also pork carried in by the driver was presumptive. But they also have problems with feral dogs. And so they thought dogs could have been a carrier. And I just bring that up as something to keep in the back of your mind, okay? And they are also using a lateral flow test before we came in BioMean system. And they're still using the BioMean to date, okay? They still have the system, and they're still ordering test kits for it, okay? So what they found is that they had problems with some of the controls. So they were lyophilized controls. It's recommended to refrigerate them. They found that it's actually better if you didn't refrigerate them. So this group was a little bit more savvy. And they helped us find that there are actually some problems inherent in the test, but not the platform, the overall platform. And so just some of the outcomes of that, just bringing up here, the endogenous controls not working correctly. So that's something that we talked to Indical about. Basically, it's part of probably their lyophilizing process, or it's something of that support, or how it's stored. And we also get some marginal CT values which provided positive results. It would say positive. And whenever we got a positive result, we'd always confirm it with the laboratory that they normally use for ASF testing. And they always came back negative. So we had some complications there that we actually could not figure out. But that, I think, is more on the reagent side than the actual testing platform. This was a little bit cumbersome because you did the DNA extraction, this multi-weld thing. This was all something you did with a pipetter. So you put a sample in and then 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, which is a little bit labor intensive. But you're not doing hundreds of tests. You're testing 1 or 2 animals, 1, 2, 3 animals. That's all you need if you suspect you've got ASF. But now, of course, and Souls mentioned this, there are devices out there where you put the sample in the device and get the results out the other side. This was a manual process involved in this at the onset, and then you put it in this mini thermocycler. Okay? And you get a tremendous amount of data off of this. Once you have it on your phone or you send it to your computer, you can play with this with data and try and interpret things. But inherently, we got these alerts, you've got ASF, but yet the curves didn't indicate that, so that's just something to work through. So then we did a survey of the study participants. So this was all the people that were running the tests in the field. And these are all the questions that we tried to cover. A number of questions, and sometimes things are kind of repeated, as you've heard in this conjoint study. You got to change the order or change how you ask things because you tend to bias people. But we had a survey that we put together. The survey was in English, but we had a translator there to go through every question and help them go through the survey. We had 8 people that did that survey from combining the 2 farms, age ranging from 18 to 51, 2 males, 6 females, 2 with high school degrees, and 5 with college degrees, and 1 MS. So the college degrees are actually all DVMs. They have a BS degree in veterinary medicine, so they're actually all DVMs. And you look at the questions that we asked. So if you go through this and look for the high points, think you would use this system frequently, most of them strongly agreed because it gave them a tool to manage the disease on their farm. Okay? I found the system unnecessarily complex, kind of neutral, and I think most of that was not the device itself, it was the manual stuff. No one on a farm wants to have a pipetter in their hand. Okay? I think that's really what you're looking at. So, but now there's new devices out there. I thought the system was easy to use. Most of them are neutral on that, and I think it, again, comes down to that manual extraction. I think I would need support of a technical person to be able to use this system, and most of them would agree with that. But because this is all cloud linked, I had a Thai colleague that was fluent in PCR, which was able to help interpret and manage all of the results. Okay? So as long as it's linked to someone that can help you with the results, that's another important feature. So if you have this on a farm and a technician's running it, but it goes to Sol or Sylvester or someone that can read those results and do a better interpretation, then you're in better shape. And that's important. That gives you a team effect. You have a team that's working with you on those results. Okay? I found various functions in this system were well integrated. Most of them agreed with that. I thought there was much inconsistency in the system. That's kind of neutral. And I would imagine that most people would learn to do this system very quickly. Again, most of them were neutral on that. And I think it comes back to that pipetting. Farm workers don't like to pipette. That's the short answer. Okay? I found the system to be very cumbersome to use. And actually, that was a strongly disagree. So yeah, they do like using this system. And there are easier systems available now, which I think is going to be talked about later today. And I need to learn a lot of things before I could get going with this system, and most of them were neutral on that. And I think it's like when they get a complex result. The device, when you have it on your phone, it says yes, no. You have ASF, you don't have ASF. You get positive or negative. But you can pull up the curves. And when you pull up the curves, if you're not a molecular person, they're not going to mean anything to you. So that, I think, is where they're kind of neutral on that, because there's a lot more data that they're just not savvy with. Okay? So the take-home for me on this is you want a system that's rugged, compact, and can be decontaminated. That's critical if you're looking at something that's going to move. Okay? The device and testing SOP should be simple, foolproof, and yet sensitive, specific, and accurate. The device and test results should be cloud-based with for prompt reporting and test and data control. That's regulators. Okay? The device should only be used by fully trained and authorized personnel. And that's speaking, say, if you're in a country where you've got to control this information. Only authorized people can use this device. Okay? The test can be performed anywhere in the world and yet results centralized anywhere in the world. So if APHIS wanted to adapt something like this, this could be in Spain, Portugal, Asia. Anywhere in the world, they could get the results in real time. Okay? Remember, and this was talked about, this is a field test, screening test. It's not a confirmatory test, yet it can exponentially increase testing and the earliest testing. That's the critical point here. Okay? All devices should be programmable and linked to key persons, authorities, and laboratories, which the device can be. And a lot of the devices now can be because they're cloud-based. And all devices should have GPS location capabilities and real-time reporting. So you know exactly where the device is, who's using it, and when they're using it. Okay? USDA should be okay with that. The testing platform should be versatile to allow for other pathogen testing. So you can rule out other pathogens. Okay? And that would be the ideal. If you set this up on a farm, you're not just going to be interested in ASF. You might be interested in high-path PRRS and SIV, something new. And if that platform has those capabilities, you have the testing protocols or reagents, then you get a lot more use out of this testing system and overall improve animal health at an earlier time in disease outbreaks or disease introduction. A lot of people were involved in this. There's a team from University of Minnesota, team from Ohio State University, and this is all, again, part of this NALM NADPREP grant in terms of identifying point-of-care testing as a potential use for early detection of any disease, for that matter, in animals. Any questions? I went through a lot pretty quick, and I'm going to be around all Leman, so go ahead.
When you ran this trial, did any authorities have access to the results, or was it the farm and you only?
It was the farm, us, and their attending veterinarian.
So you kept a wall between them.
Yep. And that's, so you have to understand, where, depending on where you are in the world, and I always preface this, you know, when people always say, you know, these countries never report, there's a big hole. You know, like, I was looking at the map, I can't remember who was showing it, you know, African swine fever outbreaks, blah, 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 and, you know, there's countries that just don't report. But they're testing for it. But the government's not testing, the producers are testing, and they don't report to the government. So there's holes all over the world. The ideal is, and I've seen this, it was implemented throughout Asia, point-of-care testing, but it can be abused in that you're testing, you know what's going on, but you don't tell anyone else, and that creates a problem. It really has to be controlled if you're talking about a disease you want to manage. Yes? So.
Got a couple related. Were there any other pathogens that you looked for?
No.
No, just ASF.
Just ASF.
And then you mentioned there was a nucleic acid sample extraction component that was separate from this. How long did the sample extraction take, and then how long did the test take?
The entire test takes you about 30 minutes.
Okay, and the sample prep was the other 30 minutes?
No, sample prep's part of that.
Cool. All right.
Yep.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, the sample prep that we used was a manual preparation. That was this multi-weld, so you take it through those steps. They provided us with a automated sample prep, but it's too cumbersome and maybe a little bit too complex to put in a farm. And this was in a farm, okay? This was not in a laboratory. Yes.
Hey, Rich, nice job. Two questions. One, semi-serious. You said lab technicians and veterinarians. Which did you consider of higher technical capability? So not a serious question.
Yep.
Second question, is this test validated against in-lab PCR, or you didn't have any relative comparative data in terms of confirmatory testing?
Yeah, we did not say duplicate samples with an official lab. The only time we had samples submitted to another laboratory was if we came up with a positive. So yeah, we didn't have paired samples with that. And actually the two people that were the most savvy were the technician and the gentleman that was over 51 that was, he wasn't a veterinarian, he was a pig farm owner, but this guy was constantly talking to us because he grasped the concept. I'd say the DVMs were more robotic. Sorry, DVMs. Yes?
What would your sample take? Is it being used at all for environmental or pooled samples?
No environmental, no pooled samples. This is all blood draws. All right, thank you.